Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with a video for Witcher 3 about something that I call skill switching. There are two types of toxicity in Witcher 3. There is Decoction toxicity and potion toxicity. I've just applied one of each there. Geralt has 100 toxicity as his base, and you can see that the dark green part of his toxicity bar will be the Decoction toxicity, and the light green part is potion toxicity. If potion toxicity is over 70% by default, the health bar will start declining because the toxicity limit has been reached. You can fix this with heightened tolerance, which when it has the maximum amount of skill points can raise the potion toxicity threshold to 100, and Geralt will stop taking damage from any potion toxicity that he has on his bar as long as acquired tolerance is actually applied. Here we just apply 4 potions and no decoctions, and that's 100 toxicity, and because acquired tolerance has all 5 skill points, the bar will be light green, but the potion toxicity won't be hurting him because of acquired tolerance. Decoction tolerance is different. Decoctions last for a very long time, and they will last for up to an hour and a half depending on your skills, and you can increase your toxicity to apply more of them with this skill called acquired tolerance. Acquired tolerance for every alchemy recipe that you know will increase the amount of toxicity. The maximum at the end of the game can be up to 267, like you see there, when you know every single level 1, 2 and 3 recipe. This will let you apply up to 3 different decoctions, which are 70 toxicity each, and like I say, the toxicity will not hurt you if it's above that 70% threshold. That's only potion toxicity. So there we've got 3 decoctions applied, and there's not enough toxicity left to apply the 4th one. At the moment we haven't got we've got acquired tolerance applied, but we don't have heightened tolerance. So any potion toxicity, the light green toxicity, that goes over 70% will still hurt Geralt and take his health away. So here we just apply a couple of the potions on top of the decoctions, and you can see that because of that light green toxicity, it starts to chip away at Geralt's health bar and actually hurts him there. And you can just see his health slowly going down. Now if you apply heightened tolerance on top of that, it'd stop the toxicity from hurting Geralt, so the health bar stops going down. But the distinction is very important for decoction toxicity and potion toxicity, and you'll see why soon. The last skill that you can use to increase toxicity is Metabolic Control, which is the yellow ability that I just applied there. That adds a flat 30% onto toxicity, taking it up to a maximum of 297. Now, the only other way that you can increase toxicity is if when you reach level 40 and have the Blood and Wine expansion, you can craft Manticore gear, and one of Manticore gear's special abilities is each part of the set increases your toxicity as well. So for the regular Manticore gear, this can increase it to a maximum of 327 toxicity there, which is another 30 on top of the Metabolic Control and acquired tolerance. When you're in New Game Plus, you can get the legendary Manticore armor, and you'll get that later in the game, again in Blood and Wine, but on New Game Plus, and that increases it even further. So each part of the set gives slightly more toxicity than the regular Manticore gear, and that can take it up to the most in the game, which is 332. That's the maximum toxicity level you can have without using glitches. So if you're at over 320 toxicity, you can actually apply 4 of the normal decoctions, which are 70 points each, and like I say, last for a very long time. And the last decoction you can apply is a Basilisk decoction, and that is the only decoction in the game which lasts longer and only takes 40 points instead of 70. If you apply these together, it's important for the mutation called Euphoria, and this is what a lot of the best builds in the game focus on because it's the best ability. You can see the 240% there on the screen. That is the Euphoria damage bonus, and it increases your sword damage and your sign intensity by that amount. So usually you'd have heightened tolerance applied, but because this is only decoction toxicity, the dark green toxicity, you can see that taking off acquired tolerance doesn't hurt Geralt. So there his health bar stays the same, but the effects and the Euphoria bonus of the 5 decoctions remains in place. Now this is absolutely crucial, and this is where the skill switching starts to come in. I applied the Manticore gear and those skills so that I could actually use the decoctions, but because they last for a long time and the toxicity stays in place, if I switch back to my regular gear, I still keep 320 toxicity and keep that 240% Euphoria bonus. Because it's decoction toxicity and not potion toxicity, Geralt still doesn't take any damage. Because this applies to the gear, you might have figured out already, it also applies to the skills. I need the skills to actually use the decoctions, but I don't need to keep them on for the decoctions to remain active or for the Euphoria bonus to stay in place. So I just removed those skills and I've still got the 320 toxicity from the decoctions, and it's still not going to hurt me as long as I've got those decoctions active. So for the next hour I have those decoctions there and they will just last, and I can keep those bonuses. And this is important because using the skill switching, you can use whatever gear you want instead of having to use the Manticore if you want to use a tankier build or a different kind of build like a Signs build. And you have these 3 slots that you don't use anymore, and you can use those to boost the mutagens that you're using and to use other skills. So instead of having a pure Signs build, you could use more combat skills. Instead of having rend or just fast attacks, you could use them both together because you have more slots available. And if you put combat skills there, you just saw I put 2 red combat skills there, and boost the greater red mutagen by a further 30% because having those 2 skills there with synergy. Because I've also got another skill there for Euphoria, a slot available, I can use Tissue Transmutation or another green skill, whatever I want. And here I use Tissue Transmutation, get another 5000 Vitality, because that's using 5 decoctions and Tissue Transmutation, which is 1000 for each decoction. So this is really powerful and can give you a lot of versatility. So it's a really good thing to be able to use, and it can increase your DPS quite a lot. Here's just another example. This is what I actually use on my build. Instead of having 2 additional red skills, I would use most of the time the Levity enchantment, which is what I've got on this armor, and makes all 4 parts of the gear light. And then I can use a couple of general skills to make the build a little bit better and use a few more all-round skills. So you can see there that I've got 14,000 and 12,000 respectively for my silver and steel critical hit damages. And what's going to happen is I put Rage Management on, which lets me use signs from Adrenaline instead of from Stamina, which is really good. And also put on Cat School Techniques, which gives 100% increase to critical hit damage. So when I go back to the stat screen now, you'll be able to see that that's gone up, and there are 16 and 14,000. So I've got an extra 2,000 DPS there, which is really powerful. So what's the minimum that you need to be carrying to be able to use skill switching? Well, you need to have all the abilities learnt, all the alchemy learnt. For the normal game from level 40 onwards, you would carry the Manticore chest, the Manticore boots and the Manticore trousers. And the Manticore boots are actually really worth using anyway because they have 30% critical hit damage, so you might just wear those as your normal boots. So you've got the ability there to use those 4 decoctions, so you would just apply the 3 pieces of Manticore gear that you need and the decoctions, and they would stay active for, like I say, about 45 minutes. Can be a lot more than that depending on how many green skills you have in your build. And then when you've applied the decoctions, you would just go back to whatever your regular armor is, like I have here. So put on these 3 if I was using those, for example, from the Ursine set for a tank build. And then all you've got to do is go and change out these 2 abilities, and once you take those off, put back the abilities that you want, and you're good to go for another hour. When you are in New Game Plus and you've got the ability to use the legendary gear, Manticore gear, you can actually just use slightly less inventory space to do that. So here's the legendary Manticore boots, the legendary Manticore trousers and the legendary Manticore gauntlets, and applying the 3 of those together with acquired tolerance and with metabolic control gives exactly 320 toxicity. So you can apply that, change the skills over, and here you can just see an example start to finish of how quick it is to use this skill switching when you're used to it. Quickly switch over the gear, put on those skills and use the decoctions, and then you're set for the next hour, hour and a half, and you're just good to go, laying waste to everything in your path and having a lot of fun because you can have a lot of versatile builds with this. And then all you got to do is just quickly put the boots, armor, whatever it is that you want to use back on, and then switch out the 2 skills, and you're good to go. One of the only things that you do have to watch out for in this build are periods of the game like at Kikimores where you need to have the skills because it takes off the decoctions during cutscenes. So for those types of places, those parts of the story, which is not very much of the game, you would just leave acquired tolerance and metabolic control on, so you can still use your decoctions between fights and cutscenes and things. Kikimores also apply a toxin, which is toxicity that they apply to you. And Kikimores need treating differently because of this. You can see here that I have the water hag decoction as part of my normal build, but because they have applied this toxicity to me, it won't go away because of you skill switching. So Geralt will start taking damage, and he will take damage until you meditate. So there are 3 ways of dealing with it. Either don't use skill switching when Kikimores are about, which is a bit extreme, but you can do if you want. Or you can meditate, switch your abilities and gear around and reapply them every time you fight Kikimores. But whilst you normally only have to do that once an hour, it becomes a bit tedious if you're doing that with Blood and Wine Kikimores. The easiest solution is just not to put on water hag decoction like that, is just to put on the troll decoction instead. And this will mean that you can just leave that. It'll counter-attack the toxicity, and water hag decoction wouldn't be working anyway, because once the Kikimores apply the toxin to you, it will actually stop working, because you can never be at full health because the slight damage that the toxin does to you. So I hope that all made sense. It's pretty easy when you get used to it, and it does let you have a couple of extra slots, because you only get 16 slots at most. It's really good to have 2 or 3 of those slots back if you're counting heightened tolerance. And the only drawback is that you can't use potions, but a lot of builds that used 4 decoctions anyway would use acquired tolerance, and they wouldn't have the room to actually use potions. They wouldn't have enough toxicity left anyway. As you can see, using the troll decoction here against the Kikimores, you still have outrageous damage if you set up correctly, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave a like if you did, and if you have any questions or anything like that, then let me know. As a last thing, you can use this through the game as well. If you are using acquired tolerance early on when you've only got 1 or 2 points in it, you can apply acquired tolerance at like level 10 or whatever, apply one of the decoctions and then switch it out, and that's even more crucial earlier in the game, because you have so few slots open to you whilst you level up. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.